Hey folks, this is a companion piece for my series on making toy scale tombstones for toy photography. And I've managed to make a 6-inch scale and a Lego scale tombstone, but I would not find a way to actually put the lettering into the stone in the manufacturing process, mainly because my manual dexterity sucks. Like bad. Like I make doctors look good type of handwriting bad. So, as promised in those videos, I have decided to make a Photoshop tutorial on how to actually put these letters into the image, just like you're seeing right here. So let's start with a brand new image. So I'm just going to open up my JPEG of my base image. This is pretty much straight from camera, and as you can see, the letters are missing. Okay, so we have our blank image here, and what we're going to do is first add the text. So to do that, we'll start with go to the text box tool. With the text tool, draw a box, and then type in our lettering. I'm just going to go with the simple RIP. You want to keep the coloring dark, either this black or one of the blacks from the shadows. So what you can do is go up to the color, and then just move over to where the shadows are and click that button, and then click on OK. And then that'll make this black the same as the darkest shadow in your image. And then just move the text to roughly where you want it. And then we have some text, but you notice the text doesn't quite match the tombstone. If we move the text over here, this side is actually pretty good, but if we move it over here, the text seems to be, the stone seems to be a little bit on an angle this way. And if you bring it down here, it looks like the tombstone probably is on a slight upward angle. So what we want to do is match the text a little bit more to the actual stone itself. So the way we do that is go over to the text layer over here, click on rasterize type. This gives us more options to transform our lettering. And then we can hit the Command T button to bring up the transform tool. Then right click and click on distort, which allows us to move all of these points in whatever angle we want. So the first thing I'm going to do is just move the P up just a smidge, and then take the lower part and just move it up so it kind of matches roughly the angle of the bottom of the stone. It doesn't have to be quite perfect, and just a little bit is all we probably really need. And we can always change this a bit later if we need to, but if we just make it look a bit like that, maybe just kick it out just a smidge to match the edge of this. It's probably a little too much. Just like that. And then hit enter. And then we have a lettering that kind of fits in better. You can tweak it a little bit more to your heart's content, but it's roughly better than what it was. So the next thing we want to do is give it a recessed look. The lettering on a tombstone would be recessed in, carved in with a chisel. So we want to get that effect. And the way we can do that is use some layering effects. So if we go to the layer here and just double click on the edge here, it brings up our layer styles. And the one we want is the bevel and emboss. And the bevel and emboss gives us several choices. We can do inner bevel, outer bevel, emboss, but we're going to go with an inner bevel because we want to chisel in. And we can control our depths to what we want. And what we have here is probably okay. And our size, we can make the chiseling more or less. So I'm probably going to pick a 5 here. You're going to have to adjust these settings for your own particular needs. But what you want to do is just kind of match up the look of it for what the resolution of your file is. So I'm just going to play around with this just to see if I can kind of get the scale right. Now, what you're seeing here, these highlights are the light of your image. So you want to match the light of the image to the light of the stone. So the brightest part of the stone is right up here. So I'm going to grab on the highlight mode over here and just click on the white and then just do a sample of the highlight just to get the right white. And the same with the black, the multiply here. I'm going to click on that button and just sample the deepest, darkest shadows. Something like that. And that way we know our shadows match the image. And then we have this recess here. The next thing to do is to match the light. So the light is kind of coming from up from the left and coming down. I know because I took this shot that it's actually a bit in front of this image and kind of shining across. So the light would catch on the letters kind of on the bottoms and the sides. So we go to the shading panel over here and then just adjust the lighting. So the dot is where you want it to be and just play around with it a bit until it looks kind of right. Then click on OK. Now, obviously, we have this big black section in here. So the way we deal with that is by changing the fill opacity of the layer. And that's over here on the layers panel. We have the fill opacity is 100%. If we drop that down to something like 14, 20%, we want a little bit of shadow, but we don't want a lot. So if we do this, then now we have the lettering in our box here, which looks pretty decent. We can twiddle it. If you want to go back and edit things, we absolutely can. The layer styles, if you click on the layer style here, you can just go back into the bevel emboss and then just change things however you want. So whatever seems to fit your particular vision of how this goes. You can adjust that as you see fit. You can change everything in here. If you want to change the angles of this, you can just hit Control T and go back into distort, and then you can adjust this however you want and just tweak it for the way it works. And if you like it, you hit enter. If you don't like it, you hit escape, which is what I'm doing now. So we have a basic text right here. But there's still a slight problem. And this looks decent, and this is probably be good enough, unless you're really detail orientated. But let's kick this up a notch. One of the problems here is that all these letters, they're still straight. They're straight as an arrow. If we take this fill and we put it back up to 100%, those letters are still straight, but you wouldn't get that with this texture here. The stone texture would pretty much guarantee that these would not be straight. So if we bring this back down to where we used to be, there is a way to actually change the lettering so it matches the stone behind it. And the way we do that is what's called a displacement map. And what a displacement map does is it adjusts part of the image based on the brightness and contrast of another layer. So what we can do is use the brightness contrast of this layer to affect how this layer is displaced. So the first thing we need to do is make a displacement map. So we want to use this layer as our displacement map. So the first thing we want to do is go to layer and mode and make sure that we're on 8 bits. Displacement maps must be 8-bit. A lot of times straight from camera you get 16-bit channels. So just make sure it's 8-bit. This is a JPEG image I started with, so it already is 8-bit, but just check that first. And then simply just go File and Save As. And you can call this whatever you want. I normally just call it displace because this is an image that is designed specifically for a displacement map. And then it has to be a Photoshop file, format Photoshop, so .psd. And we'll save it in the same directory as our final image. Then we'll bring back the layer and highlight it. So our text layer is now showing. Then we can go to Filter and down to Distort and Displacement Map. And here we can adjust the horizontal scale and the vertical scale. It's basically how much horizontal does it get displaced and how much vertical does it get displaced. The default here is 10. But I found with this image it works better for 5. You kind of just have to play with it and kind of guess what you want the values to be and then go back and tweak it later. But for now, I'll use a 5 and 5 for displacement map and click on OK. Then it's going to bring up this dialog to pick which map you want to use. So I click on displacement, click on open, and there you go. You can see now that the text is now a bit more carved into the stone. So if I undo this, you can see that is without the displacement map, with the displacement map, without, with it, within. So that's pretty much it. I am happy with these letters as they are. To me, they look fairly well carved in, and they've been there for a while. Keeping the fill at 25% allows all of the texture of the stone to come through and any colorations to come through. And having the angle right just makes it kind of work. I could probably tweak the distortion so it fits a little bit better, but this works. So I'm going to call this done for the purposes of the tutorial. Thank you for watching. Please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.